Aloha mai kako. For those who do not know me, I am Dr. Adam Jansen, and it is my privilege to serve as State Archivist and Administrator of the Public Archives. I am very, very excited to share with all of my Hawaii brethren something that is very, very important to me. I get to share my InterPARES ohana. These are researchers that I have been involved with constantly since 2009. These are some of the most brilliant archival theoreticians and practitioners that I've had the pleasure of knowing. And in particular, I'm excited about everybody getting to meet my archives mother, Dr. Luciana Duranti, who I consider to be one of the finest archival minds of our generation. So to be able to share her with you is just such a pleasure. To really set the tone for this, I have asked our Chief Information Officer, Doug Murdock, to deliver the welcome address. And this is really such a joy for me because I'm here because of Doug. Before he was our Chief Information Officer, he served as Comptroller, the head of the Department of Accounting and General Services that oversees the archives. Quite literally, he is the one who hired me and allowed me to have this incredible position. And before that, he was even a lawyer, but try not to hold that against him. So he brings a perspective that is incredibly unique from the legal mind, the effective government perspective, and now he oversees the state IT infrastructure. So he's seen all of these different areas and knows intimately the areas of pain and the areas of opportunity. So let me read his wonderful little bio off of his own website. Chief Information Officer Doug Murdock previously served as the Enterprise Technology Officer at the Hawaiʻi State Department of Human Services, overseeing some of the state's largest technology initiatives. Murdock was also Comptroller for the state of Hawaii, launching the successful effort to modernize the state's antiquated payroll system. And when we say payroll, we mean like mainframe systems from the 60s antiquated. As an Air Force judge advocate attorney, Murdock was heavily involved in legal information technology, developing IT plans and program requirements for key Air Force systems. This included 2 years at the Air Force Legal Information Services Center, developing and programming databases and websites, implementing document management programs, and gathering and prioritizing user requirements for various business applications. Murdock also led the legal office at the Air Force's Electronic Systems Center in Boston, providing advice for procurement of a $5 billion portfolio of Air Force and Department of Defense IT systems. Murdock has a BS degree in economics, an MS in public administration, and a JD from the University of Washington, and is a retired colonel. So please join me in welcoming Doug Murdock to the stage.
All right, aloha everybody. We call this Aloha Friday, which is the happiest Friday in the world, I think. So please enjoy your Friday and have a really good time while you're here in Hawaii. Just leave all your money behind. That's all we ask if you're traveling. Yeah, easy to do, I know. The most important thing I'm saying about AI right now to everybody I talk to is don't be scared, be prepared. There's a lot of fear out there that AI is going to kill us all someday. And there've been plenty of movies, about that. And I'll say this later again probably, but it's interesting that almost all the movies about AI trying to kill us off start with us trying to kill AI off, right? If you think about it, there's always, like there was a recent one called The Creator where we're trying to kill the AI and they just want to live in peace, but they've got to stop us from killing them, and it's terrible. So our organization, Enterprise Technology Services, and the state are all in on the responsible and trustworthy use of AI to improve the lives of our citizens and to solve the biggest problems we have. And I think AI certainly can solve problems like pollution and climate change and other things that we can do better. And it's been used for a long time, and I'll talk about that some more too. I was in a room upstairs in a hearing of the House of Representatives on a bill that was going to create regulation for artificial intelligence. And the idea was that anybody wanted to use artificial intelligence on any application in Hawaii would have to go through a regulatory process where they would meet certain tests, and they would eventually get approval to be used. And I had to tell them, well, the problem with that is it's been used for 20 years, maybe longer. And certainly I pointed to their screen, which had people from Zoom on it, and I said, you see the little sparkles at the bottom of the screen? That means that artificial intelligence is built into Zoom. So we would, regulate Zoom out of existence in the state of Hawaii if we do this. And they took my advice and they changed the bill to create a working group to look at how we should deal with AI in the state of Hawaii. So I think it's great that we're able to have some influence over what's going on in the legislature and the law, and that we can try and take a responsible and reasonable, trustworthy approach to AI. So I want to talk about some of the pros of AI that we see coming forward, some of the cons, the things that worry us. The biggest pro is that we think we'll be able to solve some of the world's biggest problems. I really do believe that some pollution, climate change, food, all kinds of different things can be resolved with the application of artificial intelligence. So I'm very excited about that. And I think we're going to see that happen faster and faster. I think, we're seeing, even in the design of batteries for electric cars and other things like that, we're just going to see tremendous progress. So economic opportunities, some people have invested in Bitcoin and they made a lot of money on that. Or maybe they didn't, because we don't really know if Bitcoin has any value at all, right? It can go to zero very quickly, and we've seen exchanges fail and things like that. AI is different. Yesterday, we saw the US stock market just go bonkers and hit a new record because of success of AI companies. And what's happening is everybody wants to invest in AI stocks right now. I have one share of NVIDIA stock that I bought just for fun. Yesterday I became a millionaire. No, not really. But it did very well, and I think that's going to continue to happen because AI is very much dependent on incredible computing power. And so we're going to see a lot of investment in compute, memory, internet, movement of data back and forth. So those things will be very exciting. The other thing I think is a big pro of AI right now is that there's a lot of free training out there. And you can go on the Microsoft website or the Google website or a lot of other websites and get all kinds of free training about how to use it effectively, what it's all about. And so I think that makes AI accessible to everyone. And that's really great. You don't have to go get a master's degree in AI before you can start working in the field. So I think it's going to bring some social equality to the work in this area. Some of the risks that I see, the first one is, and this can be applied to training a little bit, but more to the actual use of free AI. If a product is free, then you are the product, right? The product isn't really free. You are the product. They're getting your data. They're finding out how you use AI. And that's helping them. So you're their market research. That's okay. Just don't give them data that they shouldn't have because it's protected for some reason. So any kind of privacy information or personal information, we have to make sure that doesn't go into a free AI model. There are enterprise licensed kinds of AI from Microsoft and Google and others that will protect your data. It will be kept in a lockbox that only you can get into. And so it's very important that if we're dealing with critical data, sensitive data, that we only use it in a licensed model AI. So another thing that's happened is AI, I hear this AI sometimes hallucinates. Have you guys heard that term? It sees things that aren't really there. Somebody who's really smart on AI told me AI always hallucinates. It's just right sometimes, And I think it's safe and more safe to take that perspective, that we have to really check the answer that comes out of the AI model to make sure that it's not a hallucination. And we're always going to have smart people check the answer. So people that are worried about jobs are going to be lost or whatever, there's still important things to do to run AI effectively. Google Gemini had to turn off its image generator, I think this morning, because people were putting things in like saying, show me signs of German soldiers from pictures of German soldiers from 1943. And you can look this up, it actually happened. It showed pictures, and of the soldiers, 2 looked like Germans and the other 2, from the 1943 era, the other one was African and the other one was Asian, which we know there were none of them as German soldiers in World War II in 1943. So there was bias built into the model in favor of diversity. And that diversity bias caused it to build inaccurate depiction of what German soldiers looked like in 1943. So Google had to turn that off, go back and look at it. And this wasn't the only example. There were hundreds of examples where this happened. So hallucinations are a big problem, and we have to really look at bias and transparency in the models that we build. And we can't be overreactive, to try and taking out bias. We have to be properly tuned. And there is a possibility that AI will cause a digital divide that's even bigger than the one we have now, where people won't have access to AI in work-type environments, or it may cause people to not qualify for jobs. Now, I do believe that the free training that's available will continue to be available, and that maybe a college degree will just mean that you're 3 or 4 years behind in the AI field when you're trying to get a job. So it may create digital equity, or it may cause the digital divide to get bigger, and I think that's something we have to monitor very carefully to make sure that our workforce is ready moving forward into the new world. 3 areas particularly need policy and governance and training. The first one is data quality and relevance. So we have a chief data officer in the state of Hawaii. She and I are working to make sure that any model we're using AI on has good data quality, and that things that are either inaccurate or not relevant to the model we're trying to build get pulled out. So there's going to have to be some work on the data to say this data is not relevant, this data might be wrong, it might influence the model in the wrong way. Second one is prompt engineering, and prompt engineering is just writing the question. And any of you who have used Siri or Alexa know that if you ask the question a wrong way, you will get a very strange answer. And AI will be no different. We will have to be really good at prompt engineering, and that's going to be a whole new field of work for people, figuring out how to properly write prompts. So that'll be exciting, but an area we need to govern. And then I see IT and business really merging even more than now. So I do believe IT people and business people are going to have a complete understanding of each other's work, where we're just going to be merged into one line of work, really. Because understanding the data, understanding the prompt, understanding the answer that comes out is going to require IT and business to work very, very closely together. And I think this is the area where our work's going to move. So it's going to have to be a merger of the two fields. There was a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. And one of the things, he looked at a lot of people like Bill Gates from Microsoft and Steve Jobs from Apple and others, and he said what made them so successful was they just put in a lot of time in their chosen endeavors, and they became experts at the highest possible level. And he said it takes about 10,000 hours of practice to become an expert at that level. Now, you don't have to be Bill Gates. And right now, we're at the beginning of AI. So there are some people that have probably got their 10,000 hours in already. But just to bring it to reality, 10,000 hours is, if you do 10 hours a week, that's 20 years. That's too long, especially for me. I'm running out of time. 20 hours a week is 10 years. 40 hours a week is 5 years. So people that are working all the time on AI or working extra, if you work 9 to 5 and you're not putting time into AI, you're not probably going to get ahead. It's going to be one of those things where you're going to have to spend some extra time and spend a lot of time thinking about AI and how to properly apply it, I think. And we look for those people. Every bit counts because you are the first. It's an exciting time to be involved in this new IT. It's like when the internet first happened or when personal computers first happened. It's that big of a thing. It's like the iPhone, but even bigger than that, I think. So it's just completely going to be a game changer for everything. Gandhi said, live like it's your last day, learn like you will live forever. And I really like that saying. So that's what I encourage everybody to do, is try and learn every day. but also live every day. You know, we're humans and we have to enjoy those things. AI can keep working while we're off having dinner at a nice restaurant. I want to talk about the future, and then we'll kind of wrap up. But I'm going to go past to get to the future. Alan Turing was kind of might have been the first AI scientist in a way. And in 1950, he made this prediction he called the imitation game, which was in a movie and a book and some other things. He said the test of machine's ability, the test is what is the machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behavior equivalent to or indistinguishable from that of a human. He said someday that's going to happen. He didn't predict when. But this was in 1950, so he was already seeing artificial intelligence and where it would go. And he had already used kind of the rudimentary types of AI to break the German codes. So futurist Ray Kurzweil wrote a book called The Age of Intelligent Machines in 1990, and he said AI will succeed at the Turing test by 2029. Now right now it's 2024, machines have not succeeded to the Turing test level yet because they're not indistinguishable from humans. But it's moving pretty fast, isn't it? I mean, every day we hear about something new that's happening where it's getting smarter and better, and we're going to get there. It's really not a question of how well can we program it, it's a question of how good of chips can we build. More than anything else, it's the computing technology needed to get there, I think, more than anything else. So we figured out the intelligence part, we got to figure out the rest of the technology to get us all the way there. So he said AI will succeed in the Turing test by 2029, which might be a little scary because that's farther than we are now, and it might create AI that can go off and do its own thing. But he also said, and this is good, that humans will reach the longevity escape velocity by 2029. And I like to talk about this because I'm getting kind of old. But basically what it means is that human lifetime, which is normally capped in around 80 or so right now around the world, it's different wherever you are, would start to not have that cap anymore. Because we would start to find ways to stop people from dying in younger life and also stop some of the aging that happens. So 2029, for those of you that are a little older like me, just hold on. We're going to get there. We're going to reach escape velocity for longevity, and I think that's awesome. So that's just one of the many problems that AI is going to help us solve. As the stock market showed yesterday, there's a lot of capital being poured into AI companies, so I think that's great, and you should try and stay on top of that. And as I said earlier, all the movies that show AI killing us off, it's usually because we feared it and we tried to kill it off first, and mistakes were made. And so we need to just be very responsible and transparent in how we use AI and make sure that, you know, we train it well and it'll grow up to be a good citizen, I hope, in the world. So I leave you with my opening thought once again, which is don't be scared, be prepared. You know, let's get ahead of this, let's make it useful, let's help people understand what the power of AI is and make the world a better place. So thank you very much.
Changing of the guard. And I really appreciate Doug's comments because that is what InterPARES is about. It's about being prepared. It's about understanding what's coming down the pipe, how it's going to affect records creation, records use, and record storage, and ultimately preservation. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. And I'm stalling to try and get this laptop to wake up. And it says my password's incorrect. So while I do this, I am going to hand this over to a very dear friend of mine, Dr. Corinne Rogers, who is the program coordinator for the InterPARES project and has been for the last two projects. So she was also a fellow PhD candidate student with me at the University of British Columbia. She, however, was much more efficient at writing her dissertation, graduated in 2015, and has been working with InterPARES ever since then. So please allow me to turn this over now to Dr. Corinne Rogers. I'm going to make sure the projector's on.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Doug. I'm introducing the speakers for you today, so before each session, I will come up and introduce the speaker for that session. If we have a few minutes at the end of each speaker's time, we may be able to entertain questions, but because we have a very full and exciting program, I am going to keep the time quite strict. So we may or may not have time for questions. If you have questions that don't get asked, please hang on to them and corral the speaker at lunch or at some time during the day when you can talk with them one-on-one. So I'm going to introduce Luciana Duranti. Dr. Luciana Duranti has been a professor of archival theory, diplomatics, and digital records in the master's and doctoral archival programs of the School of Information at the University of British Columbia since 1987, and since 2011, affiliate professor at the University of Washington at Seattle in the United States. Professor Duranti is director of the UBC Center for the International Study of Contemporary Records and Archives, and since 1998 has been the principal investigator of the InterPARES research project through 5 phases. This is the 5th phase that we're in right now. She has published extensively on archival and diplomatics theory and on the use of their concepts for understanding the products of new technologies. And since 2015, she has also been the chair of the Canadian Government Standards Board Committee for the Electronic Records as Documentary Evidence Standard in Canada. Please welcome Dr. Luciana Duranti.
Thank you, Corinne. I think that I am fine. I am fine.
My archives mom.
Okay, so what is InterPARES for those who don't know? InterPARES started in '98 when I realized that the preponderance of digital records production out there was becoming an issue with respect to the trustworthiness of the records, specifically their authenticity. So I figured that we needed original archival research conducted by records managers and archivists from all sectors and in different countries, and grounded on archival diplomatics. Archival diplomatics is the science of the record, its structure, and its ability to carry out activity. So I created an archival research network where none existed before, and called it InterPARES, from Latin, among peers, because the idea was that all members of the network had equal input in the development of new knowledge. To express the purpose of the research, then I made of InterPARES an acronym, International Research on Permanent Authentic Records in Electronic Systems. Since then, the general goal of InterPARES has been to ensure that digital records are created reliable and accurate and preserved authentic for as long as needed by the creator and by society at large across technological change. InterPARES has been funded since '98 by the Social Science and Humanities Research Council of Canada grants and from matching funds from UBC, University of British Columbia, and all the partners since '98. So the goal of the first 2 phases of InterPARES between '98 and 2006 was to develop the theory and the method necessary to ensure that the records, the digital records of the time, mostly those created in databases and office systems, could be maintained trustworthy and preservable. And then that also dynamic, experiential, and interactive systems generating records in the course of artistic, scientific, and e-government activities would produce accurate and reliable record and would make possible to maintain them forever in authentic form. So differently from the first phase of InterPARES that focused specifically on traditional public records and administrative records, this second phase that included artistic, scientific, and e-government activities necessarily was multidisciplinary and required the participation of experts from all these other fields. So from the sciences, the arts, and the government. Okay, so by the end of InterPARES 2, but that is by the end of 2006, we had solved all the world problems and we were totally happy. Except that all those archival organizations, records managers, etc., who looked at all our products and our recommendations and our guidelines said, this is all well and good, works perfectly when you have lots of money. But what if you have an archive with only one archivist? What if you don't have any technology that would support these activities? What if you don't have any money? So we developed InterPARES 3, which went from 2007 to 2012. And what its purpose was to enable public and private archival organizations and programs with limited resources to preserve over the long term authentic records. So it did so by building, so on the product of the first two phases. So took those products and adapted them to situations with no resources or little resources. So what were the primary products that were used? First of all, the policy framework. Now, you have to understand that all these products are available on the website of each project on the public side. They're not covered by copyright. You can pick them up, you can change a word here and a word there and use them in your organization. So we purposely did that. This was a service research, was not a research just to get our promotions, right? So we wanted to help the world. So policy framework is a framework of principles guiding the development of policies for records creating and preserving organization. Still valid, doesn't matter how far back it was generated, we still stand by it. Same thing for the creators' guidelines. These were developed for records creators who can't afford the records manager. Or think, for example, of the dentist office. They have to keep the X-rays of your teeth forever because they are basically legal records for identifying people. Well, so these are the guidelines. How do you do that? Interestingly enough, the greatest users of these guidelines have actually been public offices in governments. And same thing happened for the preserver guidelines. Again, the guidelines were developed for people who had no professional archivists, no professional records managers, and had to keep their records forever and demonstrated they were authentic. And had no archivists and no personnel. But in fact, they were heavily used by national archives, city archives, and so on. So in a way, the principles and the methodology that describes are valid for anything that has the characteristic of being a record. Then we produce benchmark and baseline requirements for authenticity. That is, requirements that will not only help you to maintain the authenticity of the records, but to demonstrate it over time. So the benchmark requirements are really for records managers, so the first part of the life cycle of the records. And the baseline requirements instead are more for archivists, so after they've been acquired by an archival institution. We also provided file format selection guideline for long-term preservation. Again, this was many years ago, yet they're still valid, all of them. We reread them and we say, hey, it still goes. We also produced a terminology database that has been constantly updated through the various InterPARES phases and includes 3 sections. One is the glossary. The glossary is how we use the terms in all the products of InterPARES. So not just what is their prescribed meaning. No, it is, there is a term, and that's the way it is used in the benchline requirements, in this text. Then there is a dictionary. So the same terms, how they're used in other glossaries, in other dictionaries, etc., from the perspective of different disciplines. And then we created 3 ontologies. One that represented the record, what is a record and all of its components. One that represents the concept of trustworthiness. So again, what trustworthiness means and all its components. And one's about the status of transmission of the record. So from draft to original to copy, the types of copies, etc. We also created 2 records preservation models, and this is very interesting because this just shows how the boss does not command what it is, the product. So, as I said, InterPARES, all the researchers operate according to their formation, their understanding, etc. So here is a point where 2 groups of researchers could not agree no matter what. So it is how the preservation occurs. So one position was there is a life cycle that goes through steps, and this is how we describe it in detail. The other point of view is no, there is no life cycle, everything is circular. And therefore, it's a completely different model. So we said, fine. We create 2 models respecting the 2 perspectives, and people will choose what they want to use, up to them. And there they are. The final products of InterPARES 1 and 2 are 2 books, which are freely available on the website. They're big books. They're very detailed. There are, for example, for the chain of preservation process for every single activities, there are all the metadata related. So and they're not covered by copyright. Play with them as much as you want. As it regards InterPARES 3, we did several studies specifically aimed at solving problems of institutions that didn't have resources. Among these, the one that have been most popular are the cost-benefit models, ethical models, the education models that the International Council on Archives adopted, and it is on their website too, metadata application profiles, and the terminology database, which became the International Council on Archives multilingual archival database and is now in 26 languages. Is accessible to everybody. You want to add 1 language? Absolutely. Contact me and I will make you administrator, and you can go and translate in Hawaiian language all the words that are there, and add some, and then let us know, and then we will find the correspondent in the other languages. And then the email preservation processes. These were the most used studies, but many more. Okay, and then we had solved again all the problems of the world. What else do we need to do except that the cloud came about? And so new problems arose. And we decided to do a fourth phase of InterPARES, which aimed to create frameworks that would support the development of policies about the cloud. We divided the research into research domains. And they were access, control, infrastructure, legal issues, and security, as well as in cross domains. That is, with respect to all those domains, there were also issues of education, policy, resources, social issues, and of course terminology, which is everywhere. Final products. Now, this is interesting because when we started dealing with the cloud, and as we became aware how much the management and the use of the records in a cloud environment were subject to the specific juridical system of the country and to the cultural to the culture of the country, we divided ourselves in cultural groups, juridical cultural groups. So the final products are a series of books. The first one, Trusting Records in the Cloud, is the one that contains all recommendations, methodology, etc., that apply to everybody. So what we have all in common. All the others are specific. So the second one is about record keeping in international organizations. So NATO, the Red Cross, you name them, UNESCO, etc. The third was the same thing in Europe, under the European regime. The fourth was in Latin America. The fifth was in Africa. And then we discovered a big scandal that was going on in the government of British Columbia and decided to create a documentary about it called The Duty to Document, which is posted on the website of InterPARES for accessible to everybody. So then again, we had totally finished, and then AI came about. Oh, it had been about, but it had not been a problem till that moment in the archival records management environment. So we decided to go with the fifth phase, iTrust AI, InterPARES Trust AI, which is designed to leverage artificial intelligence to support the ongoing availability and accessibility of trustworthy public records. Now, we decided to focus on public records this time, not records from all sectors, because it's hard enough with public records that have a specific format, procedures, etc. So first we solve that problem, then we will move to the private sphere, but for the moment it's public records. So the aim is to identify specific AI technologies that can address those challenges, determine the benefits and risk of using it or records, and ensure the record concepts and principles inform the development of responsible AI. So the approach, the short-term approach was to identify high-impact problems and limitations in records and archives functions, and applying AI to improve the situation. For example, one big issue is classification of digital records. An enormous amount of them makes it very hard. Can we use AI to do this? Our long-term approach focused on identifying the tools that records and archives specialists will need in the future to address their ever-changing needs. Now, the fact that the iTrust AI project is a multinational, 40-country participating interdisciplinary endeavor means that our first effort had to be to understand each other, starting with the language we use. For example, archival professionals talk about records. Computer scientists and AI professionals talk about data. To archivists, data are the smallest meaningful unit of information in a record. To an AI person, data is organized information possible in a database, be facts or not, regardless of its nature or form. So basically, it's content. Digital content is data. For us, it's not. So key to our work has been to do AI tutorials and workshops for non-AI researchers, and archival and diplomatic theory tutorials for non-AI researcher, the previous was. And this one is for non-archival researcher. So basically, we have been trying to educate each other throughout, hopefully successfully. These educational endeavors are supported by the terminology database that he has developed in collaboration. The studies are all international and interdisciplinary. They focus on all aspects of archival functions, so from creation to preservation, reference, and access. Expected outcomes are to improve upon existing tools and to create new tools. For example, machine translation, image recognition and description, etc. Indirect outcomes are equally important. The creation of new professionals. By the end of the project, so many research assistants will have graduated, but throughout their studies will have been learning with us all these matters. So new early career archivists and records managers will be knowledgeable about these things. But also students from disciplines that are not archival records management disciplines, like computer scientists, lawyers, etc., will be knowledgeable about the archival perspective. There is also knowledge co-creation, because many disciplines will be enriched by this, not just archival science and records management, but AI, cybersecurity, data science, information science, law, ethics, and so on. And there is also sensitizing AI developers, scholars, and other members of the community to the role of AI in record keeping and archival preservation, and to the role of archival concepts and principles in AI design and development. So it's very important for us that archival science influences the way AI tools are developed. Participants, there you go. 100 partner organizations in 36 countries in 5 continents, about 300 researchers altogether. So today you will hear several of the Trust AI researchers talking about the study that they've been working on. And of course, if you wish to learn more, you can find us here. These are the website and the Facebook page, and of course, feel free to contact any of us whenever you wish. Thank you. One question. Do we have time for a question?
If there's one question, you can take one question, or we can,
or we can, yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
go ahead, Adam.
Now it's on. Dr. Duranti, you've been involved with InterPARES for over 2 decades now. If you had to share with all of these people who are not familiar with InterPARES what the top 3 outcomes of InterPARES, all 5 phases, which are your 3 favorite children?
Adam.
Well, I mean, the IP.
I know.
But thank you.
Well, I think that the most important thing, product of InterPARES has been the fact that so many disciplines have started talking to each other about the same issue. And that is an important output. archives used to be its own little thing. There was not a network, not of archivists and not of archivists and others. And the fact that this is so highly multidisciplinary has helped all of us, all the professions. Also, the internationality of it. So the ability to create standards, international standards, that are consistent throughout the world for how to deal with this material. And the third, the human side of it. Come on, this is a wonderful aggregation of people who are professionals, who are friends, who are the students who grow up and get old through the project. I mean, think of this, from 98, it's 25 years, right? So yeah, we definitely have, our work has resulted in all the international standards that are out there for records and archives, right? So ISO standard, NIST, I mean, you name them, all the European standards, Murdock. So yeah, not just three things, but yes. Thank you.
Adam, oh, never mind. We're going to have a small schedule change. We are now going to hear from Dr. Hrvoje Stancic. Hrvoje is Vice Dean for Organization and Development and full professor at the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at the University of Zagreb, where he teaches at the Department of Information and Communication Sciences at the undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate levels. He's been the chair of Archival and Documentation Sciences at the same department since 2008. Involved in the InterPARES Trust AI International Research Project since its inception, he is the chair of the Retention and Preservation Working Group. In the previous InterPARES Trust International Research Project, the fourth phase, he was the director of the European research team, where he led a blockchain-related research study. He's a member of the board of the Croatian Archival Society, member of Croatian Information and Documentation Society, of Icarus Croatia, and affiliate member of the Center for International Study of Contemporary Records and Archives, CISCRA, in Vancouver at the University of British Columbia. At the Croatian Standards Institute, he is president of the Mirror Technical Committee for the development of ISO Technical Committee 307 Blockchain and Distributed Ledger Technologies Standard, and he has won several awards for his innovative work in blockchain technologies. Please help me welcome Hrvoje Stancic.
Okay, good morning everyone. I'm so honored to be here and to be able to present a topic of mine today. The title is Training AI on Digitized Portraits. So this is a brief outline of what I will be speaking about. First I'll give a short introduction, then I'll tell you about the study that we have conducted, the team, the research results. I'll give you some information on the description of the training set we used for training an AI model. I'll tell you about the workflow that we have devised. I'll say, of course, a few words on our future work, and then I'll conclude. So, for the introduction part, I would like to just point out that archival institutions are challenged today, I would say, with some emerging technologies. We are facing a change in information landscape, and of course this affects both sides, both the users and the archives as providers of services, so to say. So we will somehow need to adjust both sides to what we could expect from the archives as the users, or what kind of requests, new types of requests the archives might be facing with already today, if not tomorrow. So I would say that traditional practices of archiving are also being somehow affected and transformed by the influence of technology. And there are some, we call them sometimes disruptive technologies, but not in a, let's say, a wrong aspect of that term. So the disruption may be positive as well. So, of course, artificial intelligence as a main topic of this symposium today, but also some other data, like some other technologies, like a blockchain, like big data technologies, but also some technologies that help archives achieve more easily things that they could not achieve by themselves because they are probably understaffed and similar. So the technologies like crowdsourcing or gamification as a new form of inviting users to play around with information and records which are gamified from and the material that is coming from the archives. This is something that is then made very approachable to young generations. So I would like us to look at the disruptive technologies from the positive disruption this process could bring to the archives in terms of service improvement. So the study that we have conducted is called the Identification of Critical Archival Challenges, which are the best candidates for improvement by AI technologies. So we are particularly interested in the context of retention and preservation of digital records, but you will see that some of the responses are being in a wider context, in the context of the whole archiving process. So obviously the respondents were not only feeling that they have some problems with this particular focus, but in a general, in a more general sense. As Luciana has said, all the studies are not only interdisciplinary, but internationally organized, and you can see how broad the team is. So we are basically, we have members from all over the world. We are cooperating very well. And first of all, we have started with the phase one with an online survey, because we wanted to survey the space around us, and we targeted archival practitioners and experts in the field, and we wanted to see how they feel about artificial intelligence in the context primarily of retention and preservation. After that, we followed up with the in-person interviews of some respondents who were kind enough to provide their contacts and who were also interested in taking part of the follow-up interviews. So this is just a short sketch of responding countries. You could see that we had 106 respondents from the 27 countries. United States were the country with the most responses, then Spain, then Brazil, and this might be because the survey was translated in, was offered in 3 languages, in English, in Spanish, and in Portuguese as well. So, in response to the question, in which type of institution or organization do you work, you could see that precisely 50% of the respondents were in government archives, while the rest were in college or university archives, corporate archives, etc. As a response to the question, do you have any particular processes which can be additionally improved by AI-related technologies? Because we were thinking maybe they already are involving some AI technologies, and this was true. 59% said yes. So the respondents realized that artificial intelligence could be of help. And then we tried to figure out to which group of activities the identified processes can be improved by AI. And you can see here the distribution. This was a multiple answer question, so some of them could pick up just one answer or multiple answers, or they could say, shown in a red bar here, all of the above. So you could see that there are some of 150 activities recognized together to which AI could be of help. The following question was, do any of the digital preservation processes in your institution or organization involve repetitive or time-consuming tasks? So obviously these would be the best candidates for automation or for application of AI technologies too. So 10% said yes to repetitive tasks, 13% said yes to time-consuming tasks, 38% said yes to both. So if you calculate this together, 61% recognize that there are some repetitive and time-consuming tasks. So why don't we try to help them by using or applying AI to that? And when we asked them to identify those repetitive and time-consuming tasks, the one that they had most problems with was adding, gathering, and extracting metadata, then digitization. And of course, you can see immediately that digitization is not in the focus of retention and preservation. So as I announced earlier, they had some wider problems as well. Then file integrity check, indexing, records management, appraisal, backup, and renaming files. And then the second phase of the interview started. That was the in-person interviews. And I've just picked up few answers here. And this is just a selection of responses. So one of the questions was, will you please explain how you think AI might help you solve your records and archival issues for retention and preservation? There were, of course, various answers, most not related to the retention and preservation, but they said it can help with transcription, acquisition, description, classification, and so on. And in the context of retention and preservation, they mentioned that AI can help with the file format analysis and monitoring of obsolescence and integrity of preservation. And then we asked the question, are you afraid of losing your job because of AI? This is a commonly heard threat. And the responses were no, 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 and hell no. And why? Because AI needs human supervision always, they say. Because my position, they say, will grow and advance along with the technology. Because we are the ones who train the machine. And because people who work description and transcription may be endangered, so they recognize this. But then again, if they are lifted from the tasks of description and transcription, maybe they could be allocated to some other tasks in the archives as well. And then this influenced our next step, our phase 2 of the project, and this is we are trying to, or we have tried to train a model that would help archivists to better describe their holdings. So in cooperation with the State Archives in Osijek, we have acquired a training set, a collection of portraits from the beginning of late 19th, beginning of 20th century. You can see here outlined the basic information about the collection. And we also, along with the portraits, so with the scanned images, we also have received a description of the set. Oops, sorry. So this is how the scanned portraits look like. And if we look one of them, which is shown pointed to by the blue arrow, this is the description that we received along with the scanned portraits. Of course, all of this is now shown here in English. We have it in Croatian because this is a State Archives in Osijek in Croatia. So the workflow that we have devised is a very simple one, as opposed to what the next speaker, Mohammed, will be telling you, which is going to be much more sophisticated than this. So this is the, I would say, a light approach. So we started to see how we could go along and make some meaningful achievements with the already existing AI tools. So first of all, we wanted to get out of our descriptions that we have received a meaningful set of labels. And we started with implicit data extraction, which were not directly present in the descriptions. So for example, the age. Is it a child, a young, an adult, or an old person in the photo, and similar? But also, but also the explicit data extraction of the labels that are present in the label set. So you could see here a lot of labels, and we also needed not only to extract labels, but to, in a way that we could use them, but also to create a unique label set. So although there are more than 100 different labels, for this training and for the initial workflow testing, we have chosen for pilot testing only 5 labels. They are shown here, so uniform, suit, dress, hat, and flowers. And we we were just trying to make sure that our workflow is functional. So first we used make sense solution to label and annotate the portraits. So we did that for roughly 1/3 of a number of portraits we had. So this is how it looks like in the labeling solution called Make Sense. And then we proceeded after that to the training environment, which was YOLO 5 computer vision and PyTorch machine learning utilities. And we also used Google Lab along with the local environment because we wanted to see how is there a difference between an online solution and a local environment as well. So we had 2 training sets, again, one for training and one for validation of that training, so that machine could see if it got it right. So sometimes it got it right, sometimes it's not. So here in the training set, for example, this is you can see there. Okay, so let me find this. Okay, so this is a uniform, and in the validation set, this is not a uniform. This is a dress. Okay, so basically it has a problem there. But this is just a small set that we have used, so the results, we didn't expect them to be perfect, just to make sure that the workflow is correct. And this is the distribution of the labels that we used for training, so much more suits and hats than flowers, for example. And here you can see the precision recall curve, and since we did have very few flowers, you can see down here that the results, this line with the flowers, are not so good, and this was expected. But we are glad that also this statistics shows that. So we then proceeded to try to test the model on the untrained data. So you could see here that on an image of a young General Patton, the model recognized its uniform, but not the hat. And I would say that it is surprisingly good model given the size, really small size of the model. And also, since we were staying in the Sheraton Princess Kaolani hotel, there is a reception wallpaper, and then I took a photo of that. And we tried to detect, to apply this image, collage image to the model that we have trained, and it recognized the dress on this photo. So the future work would be, now that we are sure that the workflow is correct and that we can achieve some meaningful results, to set up a server environment with a trained model. Of course, we want to perfect it, to now train it on the whole and full set of images that we have, so that it is going to be a better model. And we will be allowing everyone to label or annotate their collections of digitized portraits by pointing the model trained on archival images to the set of their archival images. So that they don't have to go through the whole process of building a model again. And we are also hoping to effectively reduce the time needed for repetitive and time-consuming addition, gathering, and extracting metadata, which was the response that received most votes for, I would say, in our survey. And this was something that was recognized as having the most problems with. So to conclude, we were trying to, in this testing phase, piloting phase, to get as straightforward as possible. We were aiming at something that an average archivist could reproduce by himself or herself. We also want to develop guidance on how to replicate this training process for a little bit more advanced archivists among us, so that they could train the model using the same methods and principles and solutions and steps as we have gone through. So we hope this to be a repeatable process for anyone else as well. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention, and of course I'm open to any questions that you might be having. Thank you. Fred?
Test. Okay, it worked. I'm wondering what the model is for making this available to archives all over, and how you assure that people don't intentionally mislabel things and get mislabeling into here.
So thank you for your question, Fred. First of all, when we will be offering our model on a server, as I have previously mentioned, it is going to be a set model that you would apply to your collection. So in that sense, no one will be able to add some additional labels to the model. So there would be no possibility of mislabeling. Of course, on the other hand, we could make a model open, but then someone could take it and then apply to his or her set of images and then label whatever he or she wants. But the one that is going to be offered on a server will be the one that we have trained. And we had a question there, I believe.
Hi, Stasha from Kavajaha Church Archives. First of all, welcome. And secondly, I'm curious, have you tried to match faces? Because I would assume that's gonna be more valuable feature than spotting a hat if you can find the same face across the archives.
Thank you for your question, but the answer is no. Because at this point, we were working with a digitized set of portraits, so images, and the description that we were provided by the State Archives in Osijek. And this description set did not have any information on the persons who are in the personal information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Peter, you do have a question? No? Okay. Okay, then thank you very much.
Okay. Now I'd like to welcome Dr. Muhammad Abdul Mageed. Dr. Abdul Mageed is a Canada Research Chair in Natural Language Processing and Machine Learning and Associate Professor in the School of Information and Department of Linguistics, this is a joint appointment, and Computer Science as an Associate Member at the University of British Columbia. His research is in deep learning and natural language processing, focusing on deep representation learning and natural language sociopragmatics, with a goal to innovate more equitable, efficient, and social machines for improved human health, safer social networking, and reduced information overload. Applications of his work currently span a wide range of speech and language understanding and generation tasks. He's the director of the UBC Deep Learning and NLP, Natural Language Processing Group, co-director of the SSHRC-funded iTrust AI, and co-lead of the SSHRC Ensuring Full Literacy Partnership Grant. He's a founding member of the Center for Artificial Intelligence Decision-Making and Action, and a member of the Institute for Computing, Information, and Cognitive Systems. Please welcome Dr. Abdul Mageed.
Aloha, everybody. I just wanted to say how much I'm happy to be here with you today. And of course, I did want to thank Dr. Adam Jansen and everybody who has invested the time and effort to get us here today. I also wanted to thank everyone in the audience, whether it is here or online. Thank you for your time, as well as our colleagues in the team who are also presenting today. Thank you. All right, so I will speak to you a little bit today about some of the work we've been doing as part of this partnership. I don't have a lot of time to talk about things. I like to talk usually, but so I'll try to be quick and brief and so on. I just chose to refer to a number of the projects that we have done at a very, very high level. So I titled this talk, Generative AI for Archives and Cultural Heritage, us being here in Hawaii, which is very pleasant. So here we are. This is a photo of a subset of people who are part of iTrust AI. I think this was in Italy a few months ago. And as my colleague Luciana Duranti has mentioned, we are a very extensive network of professionals, but also academics who contribute together in this collaboration. I think these numbers I have here on the bottom of my slides are probably outdated, and even though these were like a few months ago. Okay. I just wanted to thank everybody who has been contributing to our knowledge mobilization. I think we've been doing an incredible job mobilizing knowledge, whether it is through workshops and tutorials, or through events such as this one. So as a group, I think people have done very, very well, and I'm very pleased with this. The archives question, as I like to call it, is a simple question. So we wanted to develop AI systems for records and archives competently and efficiently while maintaining the nature and trustworthiness of the records. That's what we have in the back of our minds as we do this work. And there's archives, there's also cultural heritage. And, this is an AI-generated image a few days ago. I was like experimenting with DALL-E, which is from OpenAI. So cultural heritage is important. And now, as we have heard in the very, very visionary and also effective presentation that we had from Doug this morning, I really wanted to thank him very much. AI is very influential, and I think it has a substantial role to play in archives, but also in cultural heritage and the overlapping areas between these two. Here's an image I took a few months ago from the Louvre Museum in Abu Dhabi that kind of happened to move me because this is a page from a historian's book. Ibn Khaldun, who is a very famous historian who used to write about Arabic culture and so on, has a book called Muqaddimat Ibn Khaldun, the introduction of Ibn Khaldun. And they just took that and put it in a wall, and I took an image of it, and I'm like, okay, now we can have engagement with our heritage, but in new ways, right? So if this is on a wall and then I take an image of it, and somebody takes this image and does something with it, or make it machine computable and so on, and what does this mean, right? Well, here's a very quick reference to what we can do with these types of cultural artifacts that we can acquire, right? So, for example, here, this is a historical document that, maybe it's not machine readable at all, but then if we digitize it and do some level of handwriting recognition in it, maybe we are now at a point where we can identify names of people, places, and organizations and whatnot, and then derive insights. At a low level, this is called named entity recognition, which is a task that people do when they do natural language processing, right? And there are so many other tasks that we can do. This is just one of them, right? So our mandate is to do this type of work at a global scale, right? So we want to work with several languages. As Luciana has shown in one of her slides, the outcomes of previous projects, span North America, but also Australia, Europe, Latin America, and whatnot. And so that scale is what we have ambitiously in mind as we work in this phase of iTrust AI. And multiple languages, multiple settings, countries, geographies, traditions, because we have to be inclusive and we want to be inclusive. And that is, again, generated by DALL-E. All of these are also machine generated. So now comes generative AI. When we started our collaboration about 3 years ago, generative AI was not as big as it is today. But then, when ChatGPT came out, everybody realized, including us, that, okay, we have to pivot here and lay a lot of focus on generative AI just because of the potential. Look at these machine-generated images. One of them on the left-hand side on the top won an award. It's kind of like an art award, right? It's very beautiful for me. And all of these other ones are also amazing. You can use machines to now do like architecture design and things like this. There will be some ethical considerations that are important that we need to keep in mind. And these are also things that we are interested in and we discuss and we engage with. When we talk about generative AI, one of the biggest things that exists today is large language models, right? So, and we are deeply involved in extensive work with large language models. We pre-train new large language models. We instruction fine-tune large language models. We develop them for several types of tasks and whatnot. So we are all over the place when it comes to these large language models. And we are also very ambitious because we build new ones where new support exists. The idea of the big tail when it comes to industry, we care about the big tail. We love big tail. So we do a lot of work at that space as well. One of our collaborations, as my PhD student who is in the audience, Peter Sullivan, has entertained us a day ago, is with the UNESCO archives. We want to help our colleagues in the UNESCO do discovery and search on top of their audio archives. And we believe this is a valuable effort and investment, and we're engaging with the UNESCO on this. And it involves a lot of speech technologies, and NLP. Now, we also do quite some work on Africa and African languages. I'm showing you a map of Africa that just lists, a number of languages in Africa. It happens to be like 94 languages. This was the beginning of our work on African languages. Now we're working on more than 600 African languages, and we have already developed natural language processing technologies for several of them. These belong to different language families, very geographically diverse. So one of them is, for example, this AfroLit tool that can identify more than 500 languages. Given a piece of text from an African language, it can tell you what exactly this language is. And this is, again, this is the idea of left behinds. These languages are not supported by, the technologies that exist today. I think the most that we found when we started this work was like, okay, Twitter can detect 30 languages among these 500 plus. And this is a demo that exists online. We also released a library to do this, publicly available for free. Although we have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars to just build this technology, with quite some support from some of our colleagues in the industry. And also from Canadian, Canada, machines like we have in Canada. We have Compute Canada, which is now called the Digital Alliance of Canada. We've built very powerful tools and language models for African languages. One of them is a Serengeti, which we presented a few months ago at ACL in Toronto. And this is a model that supports the 500 plus African languages, does a lot of natural language understanding for these languages. Our new work, which we just released on archive very recently, a few weeks ago, it's called Cheetah. It does extensive natural language generation for Africa. It does all of these tasks, title generation, machine translation, paraphrase, question answering, question generation, summarization, you name it. Very, very extensive piece of work, which I'm very proud of. Now, we also, so I talked about the UNESCO archives and the idea of speech. I talked about Africa. We also do a lot of work for Latin America and also the Arab world. I'm just showing you an example here from a recent paper we also just recently introduced in EMNLP 2023 about a language model for Arabic we call Jasmine. And Jasmine is able to write very fluent language in Arabic. It writes tweets, it writes conversations. We even try to experiment with it, writing poetry. And it gives us sensible sequences that look like poetry. My postdoc is in the audience here, Al-Mu'taz Billah Najudi is one of the, he's actually the leading author on this work. And he has done a wonderful job. Now, going from this, I'll just talk briefly about some of our work that relates to cultural heritage also and documents that exist but we're not able to compute over. I recently have had the chance to interact with some of our colleagues who work on archives, and at one visit somebody told me, you see all these journals from 10, 20 years ago. We have actually more than 20 years ago. And he's like, we get requests and we can't really find what's in there. We need OCR. We tried to experiment with some of the models that exist, and they don't work well for us. That was like more than a year ago, and I said, okay, I'm going to start working on OCR, and I'll start working on Arabic, and then I'll take it to other languages. And we did. I think when we were in Vancouver, we showed some work that is multilingual. I'm showing here something for Arabic. We have all of this. We want to be able to engage with our heritage, right? Including also Hawaiian languages, which I got this from Adam. And a single document can include more than one language. And also there are challenges because it can be old. There can be some issues related to the quality of the image itself and whatnot, right? So it is important to realize how challenging this work can be. Things like layout analysis. The document would be written like, I guess like the text can go like on its side, it can be standing, it can kneel down, whatever it is, figuratively speaking. So we also want to be able to engage with the text at that level and be able to comprehend what's going on. Now, taking you from there to machine translation, which is an amazing field that I love, and we are also doing extensive work on machine translation. This is a Tower of Babel on the left-hand side here, but there's also something from ancient Egypt, where, hieroglyphics and so on, and also many things from older documents from different cultures in Greek, in Arabic, and some other languages. I think being able to work for the present and the future necessitates us working with our heritage and being able to understand how we got here. And we can't do this without engaging with our culture and with our heritage. And machine translation is an enabler. We can take one language, turn it into another, and then we can communicate. I remember when I was in Costa Rica, first time I joined one of iTrust AI meetings, I could only communicate with the taxi driver because he held his phone and he would say something, and then Google would recognize it, and then it translates it into English, and then I can now actually communicate with him. Okay, so you can see the practical applications of machine translations are amazing. Before leaving here, we've done quite some work on machine translation. We did work on taking 20 different languages, turning them into standard Arabic, for example. We did work on indigenous languages of Latin America, and we have been doing most recently, quite some work on African languages for machine translation. This is my newest piece here. It's not even online yet. You are the first to see it. Actually, you are the second. I think I showed it in Geneva last week. But the paper is not out yet, but we have been working on a groundbreaking model that we call TOCAN that translates between 150 African pairs. So we are able to exceed the industry state of the art by more than 10 blue points, which, if you have 2 blue points, you've done quite a big deal. It's significant. We are actually much, much higher than this, and I'm super excited about this work because I think there's a huge promise there. Africa has more than 2,000 languages, and being able to work with that number for machine translation is really amazing. As I said, we've been working with speech extensively as well. Our work with speech includes the work that Peter is leading on multilingual speech audio files that come from the UNESCO archives. We want to be able to search through these and enable some metadata and some discoveries also on top of the files. We've also been working on developing automatic speech recognition technologies for Arabic and its dialects. We're now turning into Africa, and we're going to start working on African languages also, opening up a new project there. very recently, we've been working with a community project to create speech technologies for Arabic dialects, because there are multiple Arabic dialects that would make any technology fail, because it's not only standard Arabic, right? And so this is work in progress, but we already have models. We published 2 papers last year in InterSpeech, which is one of the leading conferences for speech recognition, for speech technology in general. One of them was about automatic speech recognition of standard Arabic, but also dialectal Arabic. One of them was for detecting Arabic dialects when they happened in these audio files, and that work was led by Peter. We also put a demo very recently in one of the conferences. We called it Vox Arabica, that just like on top of that. I'm happy to take requests for more languages and more things to do. If you are interested in something, let us know, give us data, we'll engage with you, and we will work on something that we can do together. And definitely the work with UNESCO is something I'm looking forward to. We hope to put out some models that can be useful to people. Quickly, sometimes you have documents that are historically, they are out there, but for some reason they have some content that is not appropriate, or it can cause trauma or whatever it is, you know? And although it is important to actually have access to the original documents, and for you know, truth and reconciliation is a big thing, for example, in Canada, and I imagine elsewhere. But it may be desirable sometimes to just mask certain subsets of the text, or maybe there would be some documents that include private information, sensitive information. You want to actually also kind of be able to make them accessible somehow without this privacy and so on, right? So one of our recent works, which I talked about a couple days ago to a subset of us, we called Green Llama. And it's called the Green Llama because it's on top of a model that's called Llama 2. We took it, and you know, I think our colleagues from Meta/Facebook, they came out with Purple Llama, which is a model that just does things that we don't want it to do, but they created it because they wanted to experiment with, you know, what can go wrong. But then we said, what can go right? Let's create Green Llama. And we created this model that would take that document, and it will kind of like give you a paraphrase that doesn't have the negative content that is out there. It's achieving state of the art in what it does. Another work pretty quick, Fintral, which is a powerful GPT-4 level financial language model that can interact with financial documents very capably. And we have built it. We extensively evaluated it on a very wide host of NLP tasks like sentiment analysis, text summarization, you know, chart understanding. It's a multimodal model. It can look at text, but it can also look at images. Allows people to engage with these in very desirable ways: number understanding, credit scoring, firm discoveries, and so on. And it can do things like this. We kind of like, the paper is out there already. The paper was trending 2 days ago. It just came out February 19. I think it's still the top 2 on Hugging Face papers on that day, top 1 or top 2. And you can just give it a chart or some visualization and start asking questions about it. And it does a very, very good job. And we have very, very extensively evaluated this model. And we created a new benchmark for evaluating financial language models as well as part of that work. Going from there, some things that I think some people in the audience have seen some of it, but not others. We've been also working on these vision language models extensively. I talked about OCR. We recently published a model called Violet, which does image captioning just for Arabic. But then we also worked on, I mentioned that we are working on multilingual OCR. So we showed a demo in Vancouver about multilingual OCR. We also have another model called Qalam. Qalam means pen in Arabic, that does OCR for Arabic. On the bottom left-hand side here, we can take, it does handwriting recognition, but also you know, typewriter text and so on recognition. It takes the text and then it does interesting things with it. And Violet actually does image captioning, as you can see. These are images, and it's very small, sorry, but images, and we can caption them in Arabic. What I think you haven't seen, even colleagues who are here in Hawaii, is this Peacock. Peacock is our new model that is a multimodal model that works with documents, with images. It's an interactive model. So you'd give it an image, and then it can do a lot of things. It can answer your questions about the image. It can engage in a conversation around it and whatnot. As of now, this is only Arabic. We are going to multilingualize it. And so, I mean, I do a lot of work on Arabic, but then once we do something in Arabic, then we take it and do it with, half a dozen other languages, and that's our plan. So talking about cultural heritage and local culture, I think the technology should serve local communities. The technology should be as local as it can get. And what we did as part of Peacock is to build a data set for local Arabic cultures. Food, ceremonies, popular types of attirement, popular, important, significant historical places, you name it. So as you can see, we included a bunch of these here. And if you take any of the available models and you experiment with this, it will fail somehow, because it's not really, I think the technology really needs to, people talk about precision medicine, so you can also talk about local technologies that serve me in my own dialect, in my own surrounding. So that's what we have in mind. So for example, talking about cultural heritage, we can, these are popular cultural places that exist in the Middle East in different Arab countries, and then we actually can get models to engage around them, right? So these are just some examples. So given an image like this one, we created a data set to enable the model to work with the image. So you can ask questions, and it will answer these questions as you see on the right-hand side. I can show you something a little bit bigger. Here on the top, you have a musical instrument, and then I can say, are there women in this image? And the model would say, yes, there are some women, and it talks about what they wear and things like this. This is a standard Arabic. And on the second image, it says, if their audience who are kind of attending this party. And then because the image doesn't have any audience, then it would say no, and so on, right? The interesting, exciting thing to me is that we got this not only to write in standard Arabic, but also in dialect. And how do you do this if you don't have dialectal resources? Well, we sort of had, I actually don't have the slide. I thought I have a slide about that. But we got it to write Egyptian dialect. Anyways, long story short. And we're going to actually kind of spread it to more dialects and so on. Which is exciting because there is this challenge of creating technologies of what usually people would call low resource languages. There are not sufficient resources there. And we have some ideas about how we do this using certain methods and so on. And I hope that next time we meet, I will show you something very, very exciting that goes beyond everything we have done. We're already working on it, but I'm not going to say what it is. So with that, I just want to thank everybody who's in my own research group, and I want to thank all the collaborators here in iTrust AI, and I want to acknowledge all our funders over the years, and I want to say, find us here. There's the InterPARES AI website, our Twitter, our Facebook, and yeah.
Don't you go anywhere.
No, don't go anywhere. Okay, questions for Mohammed.
I definitely have a question. First off, big fan, big fan. I love what you do. Amongst the audience here, you have many archival institutions that have multilingual records, particularly Olelo Hawaiʻi, which is the indigenous language of Hawaii. you talk a lot about creating language models. What does it take to create a new language model to be able to do recognition? Particularly, I'm absolutely intrigued about handwriting recognition, but also then to do that translation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adam. You were not here when I started, but I just want you to know how much I appreciate the time and the effort you have invested in getting us here. You're such a great host. That's it. It's a good question. And I think the first step to create models for a new language, and new quote unquote, for a language for which technology does not exist, is to build a trust. There's a lot of community work that people need to do, just getting to know people who have sovereignty over the data, build a good, meaningful relationship with them, and have a shared understanding of why we're building the technology, who will benefit from the technology, and so on. There are historical reasons there is not sufficient trust. And I think it takes time and effort to build that type of trust, to work with the community. Once you are there, and once there is a shared understanding, then we're going to start working and collecting data and work together, really. When I started working in African languages, I just didn't start doing it on my own, although I am originally African. I'm from Egypt. But there's also Africa, southern of Egypt, right? So I started working with a PhD student of mine who comes from Nigeria and who has also collaborators and so on. And I didn't want to, I didn't think about it as technology for Africa. I thought about it as technology with Africa. Africans creating technologies with their own hands for their own countries and for their own people. And I think that level of engagement must be there. In fact, we wrote a whole paper. And sorry to take a little bit of time to talk about this because I think it's a very important issue. We wrote a whole opinion paper about what it means to build technology for local communities and how you do it and so on. That happened to be for the African context. We called it Toward Afrocentric NLP. And that was published in ACL, the top conference in our field. And I think there is a space to do this for other communities. A short answer to what it takes, well, it takes data, and it takes understanding of the language and how it works, and it takes GPUs. And of course, human time and effort and so on. It's a very involved process. And I encourage people to actually be thinking about it. If you have data, if you know people, you can work with them. I personally am very happy to engage. And there would be many other people who would be happy to engage. Great question.
Thank you, Mohammed. Okay. Now I would like to welcome someone who is well known here, Dr. Adam Jansen, who is the State Archivist of Hawaii. He holds a PhD in Archival Studies from the University of British Columbia. We were in the same cohort. A Master of Science from Eastern Washington University in Business Administration and Computer Science, and graduate certificates in Intellectual Property Management and Information Assurance Cybersecurity from the University of Washington. Prior to leading the State Archives of Hawaii, he served as Deputy State Archivist at the Washington State Archives, where he designed and managed the first fully functional state digital preservation system. Welcome, Adam.
So excited to be here. This is something that has been quite literally years in the making. And we are going to debut some of the functionality that we have been working on for you to understand how we can use some of this theory, some of the models that are being developed in a practical way to deal with issues that all of us as archivists, records managers, information producers are needing to access a vast amount of digital records. And in particular, what's intrigued me about this is my approach has not been, I need a top-flight, world-class data scientist because there's so few Mohammeds in the world with an incredible lab set up specifically to do this. I'm in archives. I work for the state. We have no money. So how can we do this cost effectively using low-code, no-code services that already exist, that have already been commoditized, commercialized, that are accessible right now to all of you? So the focus of my study has been, what can it do? How hard is it to do that? And then see where we can take it from there. So for those of you who don't know what the archives is, we are legislatively mandated in HRS 94-1 to collect all public archives. And it's been that way since 1905. We've done a decent job in paper. We're just coming up to speed doing that digitally. So not only do we collect, but we must preserve, arrange, describe, and inventory the same. And then also, to duplicate the whole preserve, provide for their safekeeping. So it is our duty to protect any record that addresses the rights, identity, property, or history of the people of Hawaii. Make sure that those records are protected, make sure that they are arranged and described so that they can be discoverable, and then to make sure that you and future generations will have access to them without actually destroying them in that process. So balancing use versus preservation. So we have a very large mandate. It's a very important one societally, and we need to figure out what to do with all of this digital stuff, because we are now actively downloading social media and websites for state government. And we have in excess of 1.5 million photographs and video files that we have downloaded off of these social media sites since the beginning of social media. And if the lessons of Musk and Twitter teach us anything, we cannot trust them to do these functions. It's great for access, continue to do that, but we need to have a backup plan for when they go crazy and decide that they're not going to provide access anymore or charge, or as Twitter did, change the API. I can no longer download Twitter externally because they're charging outrageous amounts of money for the API to be able to do that. So we're having to find alternate methods. So specifically what we're looking at is one particular pain point that is very relevant this time of year, and that's doing legislative research. Because if running the archives over the last 6 years has taught me anything, it's what's old is new again. Some of these issues are very, very cyclical. Some things happen every single session until they get resolved. Some things, they'll get introduced, and then 4 to 6 years later, you know, we need to revisit that. Why didn't that bill pass? What was the testimony for? What was it against? The problem is there are thousands of bills introduced every year. Thousands. Some get heard, some never get heard. And they have a very short window in which to do all of this. So it's very rapid fire, no time between them, and we just go until the end of session in May. And so what this results in is that the documentation on the bills themselves are in a bunch of different containers, documents, repositories, different locations that have to be reviewed. And the oral testimony, which to me is some of the most powerful, is not really documented other than the recordings that you'll find up on YouTube. It's not formalized within the state system in any way. And particularly, it's that dialogue that happens during that bill hearing where a legislator will ask, well, no, I need to know more about this so I fully understand. If this goes forward, how will it directly impact you? Or if we do this instead, is that a preferred? That's not really captured in any other way other than these hearing videos. And so when you conduct research on a specific topic, you're really limited to what's the title of the bill? What are the keywords that they selected at introduction? What's the small paragraph describing what the bill entails, which may or may not morph over the time that that bill's heard. And you lose visibility to so much of that. So the question is, when you find a bill, this is what you get to search on. This is it. Those are your key words. Can we do more? can we do better so that you don't have to select what version you want to review, what committee report, which are really, really short because they have thousands of bills that they're seeing, what testimony was submitted, this is written, or do you go to the oral testimony and the little YouTube links? So 4 different areas to have to search for. We can do better. We must do better. And part of that is making sure that we can do this in a way that everybody can participate in democracy. Not just the people here on Oahu, but Hawaiians everywhere all over the world. So the then what is we do this, and then to do that research, you have to read through all the documents, watch the hearings, which do have professionally created closed captioning SRT files that are not searchable. They're not downloadable by the average person. And then attempt to locate a topic of interest, which may or may not have been discussed in that bill page that I showed you. But there is a better way. We've dabbled in this a little bit, and I want to talk about where we're going with Research 2.0. I'm talking fast because I want to give them as much time as possible. So I'm going to welcome up my partners on this project. We have from Microsoft, Michael Cruz, who is the Director of Data and AI for Pacific Northwest State and Local Government. And we have Rob from Quisitive, which is a local integrator that has a lot of experience dealing with Azure AI services. So I will let you guys take it from here. And hopefully you know how to use PowerPoint.
Well, let's hope. Thank you, Doug.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Again, Michael Cruz. Pleasure to be with you today. It's been an honor to participate in this project with you. And let me say it's an honor as well as a time-consuming one. It's been about 5 years we've been talking to Dr. Jansen about what we could do with AI. And it's my job over the last decade to talk to state and local government agencies across the West Coast and now the nation about what we could do with data, analytics, and AI. At the time, the things that we had were, while great and reached human parity, right, these models were just as good as humans as identifying objects, recognizing speech, identifying key phrases and so on, but they weren't quite good enough in that they still required a lot of code. They still required the data scientists, as you were mentioning, Dr. to engage and bring them together. What I'm happy to bring to share is that since some time has elapsed and these models and the way that we provide them have evolved to make it much more easier to consume, we can explore these use cases a little bit closer. Of course, what we're focusing on today is with archives, but there are many other use cases that we can describe how they can apply to state and local government. It's been my life passion, like I said, over the last decade, and prior to that in Washington State as I worked in government there for 15-some years. So as Doctor was mentioning, there are models, there are current ways to consume this, the data out in Senate and House, right? YouTube does a great job of providing a platform to play back these. However, as you mentioned, my colleagues over at Google and YouTube, they don't provide a great feedback mechanism or search mechanism to find exactly what we're looking for. And combine that with the problems that Dr. Jansen described, it's really hard if you think of it from a context of a resident that wants to know about the impact of a certain conversation, maybe at the topic level, may not even know what the House bill number is or the Senate bill number. But how difficult, as Doctor demonstrated, to find that information is and what their representatives and their senators are doing for that. And so what we did in this proof of concept is take together a couple different solutions that we offer in our cloud offerings. Vision was a huge part of it, identifying objects inside of a frame, inside of video. Of course, speech, language, and decision, other traditional AI methods we applied to this. And what I did was I asked my colleagues over at Quisitive, Alex and Rob Carrick here, to put together these solutions in a low-code and no-code solution. So I'm going to show a little bit more about the GPT portion of it, so stay tuned. But let me have Rob show you what we did with the traditional AI pieces.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Dr. Jansen, again. What we're tremendously excited about in working with Dr. Jansen was the vision that he set forth for all of us, saying we can do better, we should be doing better. There are these services already built. How do we bring them together into a more cohesive set of services that allow us to really interact and interrogate the data, knowing that what we used to do can be much more powerful by what we can do now, aggregating the data, aggregating the services. And we talk about it as data because we may show video, but the reality is that the ability for these services to be brought together, the indexing of video, the recognition of objects, the translation and the transcription of the text to then make it fully searchable, the integration with Copilot, which Copilot unlocks the ability to really work within the data much more fully than ever before. Taking and bringing all that together inside of the Azure services, making it more democratized for that interaction and that interrogation. Uh-oh.
Oh boy.
The technology is always the best part because it can be a little unpredictable.
It's Microsoft Office.
The easy things are the hard things, and the hard things are the easy
Or if you
things.
bounce into...
Okay. One moment, all. Any chances are... Hold on. Yeah.
Just go to the web.
Yeah. Good idea. This is you?
I swear this worked earlier. So instead of the pre-recorded, what we're actually doing is this is my Azure environment. This is where we've uploaded all the videos, and we're actually going to play against the system live. We didn't know how the web would be capability here, so we're going to hit it live instead because it looks like we're having a really good response.
Yeah. Go for it.
It's even better.
Yeah.
You know, run it.
Yeah, you started.
I think this actually works out better just in the sense of you can actually see now the responsiveness and then the technologies that we've pulled together. Again, we kind of prepared to have it recorded just that way in case there was any interruptions with connectivity. Building on what Dr. Jansen had said, when we think about some of the topics that are really, really impactful to Hawaiians everywhere, and most recently one of those being a topic like Red Hill, you know, well-known and I think a well-articulated challenge that Hawaiians are facing, that when we're able to aggregate all of the different services against the data set, like the videos, that we can search on Red Hill and have it bring together both the index of where Red Hill was discussed in the videos that we've aggregated together and indexed, but also then to create transcriptions that didn't exist before that allow us to then translate them if necessary, to then interrogate them and ask questions of them in order to more fully research the topic to see how it's been discussed. There are other AI services like intent, facial recognition, object recognition, things that again help to further identify and link together areas where there was discussion or appropriate, again, object orientation that might lend itself towards better and additionally more deep research. So as you can see, the way that that works is to look at the keywords and topics that were discussed. You could use a bill if you really wanted to, but we also know that very often these topics are in multiple bills, multiple sessions, multiple committees. So being able to link together the bills along with the topics as they're discussed, and really, to me, what I thought was cool is being able to go directly to the spot in the videos. Again, if it was a picture, it could take you straight to the picture based on object. If it's an audio recording, it can take you to the place in the audio recording where the topic was discussed, so that you are more quickly accessing the information that is helping to further that research. It also then uses this concept of the named entities. The great thing about the model is it will continue to learn as these things are aggregated. So once we, and I love the example that Dr. Jansen used, that former Governor Ige, as it was transcribed, was spelled E-G-A-Y, which we know is not the actual appropriate way to spell his name. It's I-G-E. Once we told the model once that it's I-G-E, it learns that when it hears Ige, to spell it and represent it inside of the transcript as I-G-E. So that way, again, importantly, when you're going to search then for Governor Ige, you're going to find the relevant results. The next section is emotions. We often know as well that in the research, being able to understand, I think as Mohammed had showed as well as far as the green llama, which I found really fascinating, Mohammed. Thank you for sharing that. That being able to read emotion helps also to better understand intent. What I have learned is that 80% of communication is done visually through face, through body language, and posture. So being able to use the emotional intent insights from AI help to further that research, again, by providing more depth and interrogatable information inside of the archives. All of this is downloadable, which today is important because that means we can connect it to other AI services that have not been connected as of yet inside of the model. It also allows us to make sure the data stays where we want the data to be. Again, using across any other services that might be important and impactful for you to continue in that research. Michael, I'll bring you back up.
Thank you, Rob. We should go on the road more often with this show. This is, of course, what's amazing about these is these traditional AI components, as Rob described. Inquisitive was put these things together, and as we indexed each of these Senate and House videos, extracted or generated these AI generated insights out of it. So, for instance, you ever get a text, and the text you had no you didn't know exactly how the text was written, so you didn't know if it was sarcastic, if there was some sort of a jab inside of it, or so on. And yet you responded how you felt, and it was a miscommunication. Right? This is what we're hoping, actually we're proving that beyond OCR, and thank you so much for your group's current, and existing investments and time and studies to develop these models with us, right? With Microsoft and others in this field. But we have to take it to that next level. If we're looking to, in the cases of archives, find information, like not just the data, but the information behind the data that we're looking for in our daily lives. And so that's what things like emotion, you might not think, well, why is that necessary? Well, you might want to know when a senator got angry about someone in testimony about a topic that maybe they were challenging them on, right? Versus where they were just compliant with what was going on. You might want to look for those keywords. I recognize what building we're in, so I'm not going to go any further with my editorials on that, but this is I think, what I think goes beyond the normal transcribing of things. And if we're going to, from an archivist perspective, store these things, we want to make that searchable for our future generations that want to do study or even just understand what life was like, for whatever purposes. And so we are talking about this from the traditional AI perspective, right? These things have been around for quite a bit, and thank you so much for bringing that all together. The next piece that we would like to describe is then, what could we do beyond generating these insights? How do we make that even more searchable? And so I would like to go to a different section, and here what we did was load up this information into a GPT model. So we're sort of calling this the legislative GPT, the Hawaiʻi Leg GPT. And as I pull it up, I am going to show you what it's like to chat with this legislative data, okay? So you might have saw that some of that testimony occurred 11/3/2022. If we were good writers of questions, we could say, hey, tell me exactly what happened at committee meeting that occurred on 11/3. Instead of that, I'm going to say, hey, what happened last November at the HHS AEN committee? And yeah, this is a proof of concept, so I'm crossing my fingers a little bit here. Okay, so it said, the sources only mentioned that committee in passing without providing any details. Describe the transcript of that meeting. So naturally, it's understanding that I said last November, so obviously it's going to take this date into consideration, and it's going to say brief mentions and so on. It's going to bring up, of course, not errors, because we wouldn't want that to occur, but it's going to bring up transcripts where I'm going to say where Red Hill was mentioned now. And what it should do is use GPT and natural language to look through all the different transcripts for this topic of Red Hill and identify the sections of the transcripts where that came up in. So I'll click on this just to say, yes. So you can see that it's pulling up the citation for this and the thought process for why it brought up this topic when I asked for the Red Hill conversation. I might here click a couple other buttons. I'll clear this chat. I'll ask GPT to provide follow-up questions to my questions. So if I say, summarize the Red Hill testimony. Now, mind you, we loaded quite a few transcripts, but it's not comprehensive. So at this point with the proof of concept, we're saying that it's good enough to at least demonstrate, but in order for this to go to full production, we will be looking to do the entire data set. But what's nice about it is that instead of me having to traverse this data myself, I can have GPT suggest questions that might be relevant to the content that it's consuming. What's nice about this also is that I could ask it, well, if you've ever used chatgpt.com or any of our commercial offerings on Microsoft, you might have said something like, provide me a recipe for cookies. And the difference between these models that we're building for Hawaii and the ones that are out there in consumer land is that these are grounded in your data, in Hawaii's data, and specifically, explicitly told that if you don't have information about this in this data, that you answer, I don't know. Right, and so this is while it sounds simple, it is a huge difference between the consumer grade capabilities, which are amazing, but now what it could look like at applying it to your use cases. Now we've talked about it at the archives for quite a bit about what this could mean for finding out more information. We think that it's going to allow people to search for topics like not knowing House bills, just topics that are at the top of their mind and be able to ask those questions away. And then also prompt them with additional questions that they might want, that maybe they didn't think about, and have them explore further. Now that's the archives perspective, but I think further wide stream, perhaps there's places where folks in this building could help them to navigate and research their own bills that they'd like to propose. Look for ways that this same information set could help inform them what was successful and what maybe needed some improvement before they reintroduce the bill again. I'm getting editorial again, but this is the point, is that it opens up so many more avenues. Once this data is brought together, obviously from an archive perspective, it's important for the state, but also for all the other angles and avenues of government. So this is, I'll go back to here. The chat with legislative data is something that we're going to be continuing this proof of concept on, and we'd hope to get support from legislative bodies to continue this work at the state, because we think that it's obviously what we're putting out there is that there's value in doing this work, not just for one department, but the entire state. And it's, I think it's going to be getting even better. We've been able to get to this point with some of our strategic partnerships and investments with OpenAI. Those models are going to be continuing to grow. The ones that we've been showing off so far are around text and large language models, but there are others around images, as you saw there from Dr. Abdul Mageed's presentation, images generated. And if you watched over the weekend, last week, all the new video creation capabilities, right, from Sora. If you haven't seen those, I'm actually not allowed to show them on this screen because of the rebroadcast, but please do go back and find OpenAI Sora, because it is amazing. But because of our relationship with OpenAI, we are able to offer them to you today, all these capabilities, so that you can leverage them in your day-to-day work. And I guess that's where I'm going to expound a little bit. I'll look at the clock and say that I think we're okay on time to take license and say that we are, this is not just a Hawaii thing, right? This is what we're doing for the nation. In the city of New York, they're looking to do this for all services. So think about if you want to do anything with the city, in this case, how do I start a business? Well, you can ask, you could, do it the old-fashioned way and look through all the reports and all the documentation, scour the website, or you could start using their My City chatbot, where the GPT engine is sitting on top of all that data and doing the traversing of information for them. This is not new necessarily in what we're able to do, right? But what is new is that we're bringing it all together and simplifying it even more, right? So data scientists, as you heard from the good doctor, have been able to do these types of thing, right? Look at all the great applications that they've built. But as Dr. Jansen points out, not everyone has those types of resources, and that's what our mission is. I brought my card up here to read that our mission at Microsoft is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And that's what we hope to do, is make this even more consumable, more democratized, so that you can use them in your areas. And so what we've published out there with, of course, our collaboration with OpenAI is this idea of a foundational model, right? Something that is trained very well in linguistics and literature, language, grammar, all these things. But it is not specialized in your use cases. Right, so of course this is what our proof of concept with archives is meant to do, is to specialize it in archive data and archive use cases. However, this doesn't stop us from perhaps working with the Department of Transportation to identify all the different use cases within there. We're working with Department of Licensing. How do I renew a license? If I'm reading a driver's license guide, how do I translate that on the fly to my language? In fact, let me jump back into there. Let me see, I'm going to run a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to say, tell me this in Tagalog. We don't see that. Oh, yes, you don't. Thank you. Yeah. So I asked the question, thank you, Doctor. I asked the question to repeat. You might have noticed that I didn't have to retell the question. It keeps contextual understanding of the conversation. And you probably don't understand this, but it is what, thank you. Or maybe how about this? Tell me this in, oh, I can never spell Portuguese properly. Did I do it right? Thank you. Yeah. Explain the last HHS committee. And it's going to at least tell me that it doesn't have the information that it's looking for from the HHS meeting, but it is in Portuguese. This is both ways, by the way. So not only can it turn my queries into the language I'm taking, but if I were to type in that language, it would respond back in that language. And so this is what I love about it is that we no longer have to create models, specific models for each one of these use cases. That it is foundational model. And that we think that, yes, there are many use cases along with the ones I was talking about with Department of Transportation, Department of Licensing, Health and Human Services, eligibility, right, being able to navigate Medicare, Medicaid. There is just a plethora of different use cases within government. And that's my life's work for the last 30 years, is making technology work in government. And it is a great time when it comes to data and all this. So I also want to say that along with the use cases that we're coming up with at the state, including archives, we are looking to ensure that we're enforcing or introducing all the responsible AI, to ensure that we're being transparent and fair with the responses and the data that we're training it. I won't go into detail with what the doctor and our research teams do around this work. There are guidelines and principles that we publish so that whenever you include this in your use cases, that you would go through the same comprehensive principles that cover you in this regard, and of course for the right reasons. But it is something that we're excited to continue this work with, and from a research perspective as well as at a practitioner level, to start bringing these capabilities right to our citizens and residents. I think I'm going to click this step and hand it back over to Dr. Jansen.
Thank you. Yeah. So you've seen the blessings and the banes of trying to work on the bleeding edge of technology. But what really intrigues me about this is the capability. the insights, the ability to do named entity recognition, keyword extraction, sentiment analysis, just from the video. We're just focusing on video right now. As we start to move forward, we really want to keep building this out to see what happens if we start to include the written testimony, if we start to include the committee reports, if we start to include everything that we now know about the legislative process from the beginning to the end, and we're not just looking at those oral testimonies, how much more knowledge can we uncover? How much better focused can our research be if we're looking at the whole of the information source? And then we want to start building up and loading more videos. We've only got dozens of videos loaded right now. I have over 4,000 legislative hearing videos that we have downloaded, and exceeding 15,000 videos overall for state government. So as we start to load these in, how much more can we learn? Because what Michael showed when it says, I'm sorry, I can't answer that, I don't have enough data, is showing you that this is going against my subscription, my scope of the universe. It does not go out onto the web to say, oh, let's find an answer. It only works against those records that the archives maintains, and then searches those for the answers. So if we don't have it, it's going to tell you we don't have it. And then to test the results that come out versus what would we expect. So as we start to do some of these named entities, are they missing local names that the model doesn't understand are a person or a place here in Hawaii? Are we getting those keywords out and spelled correctly? And are we identifying all of the public figures? Because I don't know if you noticed at the very top of the insight, it showed who the speaker was using both visual and auditory recognition. So that now we also have some authenticity aspects to it. It's not just, oh, well, so-and-so said this. You can say, show me where so-and-so said this, and it will take you to that, and you can listen and watch yourself to see what it does. And then because of the process that the Senate and the House follow right now, as I mentioned, they do have professionally created closed captioning created for these hearings. And those are embedded in the YouTube files. So let's use the tools, extract those, and then compare it against the Microsoft model to do that speech-to-text recognition, find out where we're coming short, and then train our model to be better. And then continually get in this revision where we're making our model better and more accurate as we move forward. And then for me, it's to document how we're doing this. If you don't have IT, if you don't have the appropriate servers with gobs of GPUs in it, and you're comfortable with leaving all of this in the Azure environment, it's actually going to be a pretty low lift for you to be able to implement these services. And I'm going to work with Michael and his team to actually write up the recipe book. How do you do this? If you can get a computer scientist with, if you can get a bachelor's graduate in computer science, you'll be able to do all of this yourself. Because it mostly is pre-packaged. You just have to put the little hooks in the right order to do what it is that you want to do. And then we want to really expand this out, not just on legislative hearings, but Doug Murdock, our CIO, and I have been having discussions. They're going to eat their own dog food. They're going to roll this out into their boards and commissions to see how can we make public meetings more public, more searchable, more understandable in a very rapid process where we can get all of these services done, extract the data, and make it accessible within 48 hours after the hearing. And then continue to test these insight generations against static, against photos. Because what is video but 30 static photos a second? So all of that computer vision, recognition, the OCR into the images themselves for logos, street signs, business names, to be able to do that, extract all of that, and help us do a better job describing the hundreds of thousands of photos that we've digitized and put online with very minimal metadata. And then continue this to add other types of documents, not just video, not just photos, but mailboxes, entire Outlook mailboxes entire office documents, whether it's Excel, PowerPoint, or Word, and throw all that through there, PDFs, do all of it and see what we can do. How much more powerful would it be if instead of having to search by series and box, and you can just say, what do you have on Curtis E. Alcala? And it just goes through and finds all the photos and the audio and the written records that we have from Curtis E. Alcala that are in the archives. So it's a much, much more powerful tool. And I think it has a huge amount of promise with a relatively, all things being relative, short lift to build that up. So we welcome any questions that you have. And for all of us local kind, we will continue to refine this. And over the next 6 months, you're going to be seeing more demos of this as we get better.
Thank you, Adam. One question, anybody? I was so happy to see the one slide about responsible AI being developed, and with this model being developed in the archives, we are getting that archival perspective and the archival needs for authenticity, and that's very important. I actually do have a question, one very short question. So close. I'm just wondering if there's any anticipation of what the cost would be for an archives to implement something like this.
And I do appreciate that question, because one of the things that is the advantage of Microsoft doing this for me, or more accurately with me, is that I have full visibility into the cost management aspects of this, so that I know exactly how much this is costing. Oh, never mind. I don't know what he did. The long story short is what we're looking at is about $7.50 per hour of video processing to get all of those insights generated. Now, doing it virtually requires servers in the ecosphere, and Michael, you got to come back here and fix this now that I've broken it. See, that's the other advantage of having somebody from Microsoft. Yeah. Well, I can't even find where the heck the mouse went. Do we have to reboot? I totally freaking broke it. There we go. All right, just close that out. So I will be able to tell you exactly how much it costs and where that cost breakdown is. So you want to leave everything up there, do it yourself. You'll have what you need to be able to figure that out.
Thanks very much. Okay, now we're going to hear from Massimiliano Grandi. Massimiliano is the archivist in the UK Altrad Group, a multinational corporation providing industrial services. He has been a member in several phases of InterPARES, focusing on research into the preservation of email initially. And in InterPARES Trust AI, in this phase, he is working as part of ANAI, the Association of the National Association of Archivists of Italy. And he's a member of the team studying whether and how AI may be used to build or reconstruct the archival bond and enrich metadata schemas. Massimiliano.
Hello, good morning. And so I'm going to deliver this presentation that relates to the activity of our group. Our group is Team CU05. And the title of our presentation is our investigation about how artificial intelligence may be leveraged in order to identify or recreate the archival aggregation of digital records and enrich the metadata elements describing this aggregation. In other words, the prompt of our study has been the following. So we have a number of huge amount of documents that are created every day in various environments, in every corporation and administrations. And the number of these records overwhelms the capabilities of archivists, records managers, and other professionals to manage and sort them out properly and assigning them to the proper series or the proper case file or the proper collection, the proper groups, or connecting them to the originators or to the creators. So basically, what artificial intelligence can do to assist humans to automatically classify records, for instance, aggregating the records to the right place in the right intellectual structures, that is defining how the records are to be linked with one another and with their creator and with their respective series and case folders, how to manage particular kinds of records, for instance, such as emails, and how it's possible to use artificial intelligence to associate these records with the right metadata elements describing them. This has been, or facilitate also other kind of management processes such as appraisal and disposal. This is the prompt of our research. So the first step has been to carry out a survey, a study, to try to understand what, at this point, the companies all over the world have devised to try and solve these problems. And we have started to identify a first pool of 300 companies. We have used a number of strategies. We have also to credit some colleagues, such as you can see Mr. Bell-Sharp or Mr. Warland, that have provided us with their list of companies involved with application of artificial intelligence to information management. Further on, we have shrunk this initial pool of 300 companies to a smaller subset of 100 companies on the basis of what we have found out on their website, if they showed some involvement with document management, or even better with archives and records management. And then we have refined further on this subset in a number of 28 companies that have been selected to be invited to an interview, to a survey, on the basis, again, of their involvement with archives and records management, on the basis also of what they are producing, if they could be of interest for us, for our professional domain, also in consideration of their portfolio, also their general reputation. And finally, interview this, we sent the invitation to these 28 companies, and 13 companies replied to our invitation. And you can see here the one in this map in the world that have replied to us. You can have, it's remarkable, for instance, that a small nation like Austria has provided two companies that have accepted our invitation. Which services normally are delivered by this company? Not only the 13 that have replied. In this case, let's say that this slide relates to the 28 that we had initially invited. First and foremost, the most widespread service is the automatic indexation and classification that by far seems to be the most advertised functions. Then other operations that are, let's say, advertised are the automatic data extraction that normally occurs at the same time when a document is being scanned. Intelligent processing, that is a sentence by which they mean that they can automate or manage some particular procedures or workflows that are of interest for our professional domain, for instance, routing documents to specific people or implement retention schedules. Then intelligent discovery, that particularly relevant for legal management of records, or automatic reduction of documents, that is important for compliance with privacy legislation. So, to the 13 that have accepted our invitation, we have met them one by one before sending them the questionnaire, because we have prepared a questionnaire with 25 questions divided into 4 groups: the achievements, what they had done so far, the specific capabilities of their products, the technologies and methods that they have used to set up their artificial intelligence application, how they have decided to measure the success of their products. But before sending the survey, we have met them one by one. We have explained exactly what we wanted to know. We have also told them if you want to meet, to get further support, further advice by us, you can get in touch with us as many times as you like. And finally, we have analyzed the survey. Which are the outcomes? You can see in these slides that what they've replied. As you can see, the automatic classification and the association of documents to specific groups or to specific files more or less is something that we have is been implemented more than other functions like that are a little bit more complex. For instance, as you can see, reestablishing the connection, the link between records that are completely unarranged, assign them to their specific group is something that is more difficult for them on average than automatically placing them immediately in the right case file or giving them the automatic classification. However, more or less, there are this complex landscape can be summarized in two kinds of strategies. Either these applications may rely on some kind of element, metadata element information that they can find either directly on the document or in the system or in some other resources that this application, these products can access, and they work on this in order to achieve their objectives. Otherwise, what they do is they analyze the content of the records, and from the content of the records, they, on the basis of the content, they try to achieve each of these objectives. In particular, for this second strategy, we have also met a company that has implemented a kind of subvariant. So they work on the record content, but before feeding simply the content of the records, before they try to give to their application the particular taxonomy or term ontology or filing plan they want to use to classify records by describing this ontology or this filing plan or this taxonomy in a knowledge graph. This knowledge graph is fed to the application. Then the application study how to the records of the content and try to match the record of the content of the records against this knowledge graph that is previously being fed to the application. This, in a sense, is a subvariant of the second strategy. So, therefore, let's say what actually these applications do is not different if you think of it from what humans do. Also, humans either they can rely on even archivists either can rely on pieces of information that are already available. Otherwise, they try to get this information directly from the content of the records or from the analysis of the environment. In a sense, what these applications do, they follow the same strategy. But what means this? That particularly for record aggregation and reaggregation, let's say it means that it's unavoidable that the role of the humans, because the fact that this application, either they can find this information somewhere, and so it's necessary for humans or for other application to associate records with these pieces of information, these metadata elements. Otherwise, it's necessary that inside the content of the records is possible for the artificial intelligence products to find some elements through which they can build functional relations among records that may enable the artificial intelligence application to aggregate or reaggregate records. So it means that in any case there is a role for humans, because either an upstream roles and sometimes at the same time, so alternatively, a downstream role in which the humans assess what the artificial intelligence products has managed to do. So basically, the automatic or semi-automatic aggregation based on document content, so when are not available already metadata elements to do this automatic aggregation, often is only suggested and normally must be supported by a human-in-the-loop workflow or by user validations or by rules that have been already established by some human actors. Again, also for the provenance is not easily recognizable from the artificial intelligence solutions. We have understood that they struggle much more than, on average, than compared to automatic classification or automatic aggregation to case files, and is based on inferences without elements like the identification of the right case folders or the presence of some element like a stamp or other specific classification metadata elements is difficult for them to reconstruct provenance. So it means that for the reconstitution or the identification of the archival bond, so the element that links the records with all the other records of the same archives, the same series of the same case folders, when lost or non-explicitly defined, is still a complex activity. And in order to achieve significant outcomes, is still necessary to ensure more investment that at the moment are not completely supported by the market. In other words, there is still room for work to be done. Another finding that in order to achieve good outcomes, it is necessary to interact properly with other professionals, to be very attentive about the terminology that is being used. Because sometimes, for instance, when we use the buzzword intelligent document processing, you may be finding in many websites the expression intelligent document processing. But often this does not mean document management or records management as in our professional domain is understood. It's understood in a completely different way. There has been another intervention in which data is understood differently in the information science domain and in archival records management domain. It's the same. It is important to make an agreement concerning which terminology is to be used. It's also important to set the right expectation, because sometimes there is this idea that artificial intelligence may immediately give great result. Yes, in perspective, it may be really helpful and really solve a lot of problems, but is necessary in any case much work, upstream and downstream. And so it is necessary to set up realistic expectation, particularly in relation to the resources, human resources, financial resources, time resources that are to be devoted. This is one of the findings of our research. We have also tried to test in practice, let's say, the finding in 2 case studies that we have pursued. The first one has been with NATO. NATO, there is no need of presentation, it is a national North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and they have made available for us, for our case study, a large series of declassified committee records from the 50s to the 90s, particularly the documents of the North Atlantic Council and the documents of various subcommittees that have been created to address specific topics that then each subcommittee report back to the North Atlantic Council. The organization of all these records has been done on the basis of the organizational structure of the NATO itself. I know that it's not very popular in our professional domain, a sorting out of the records, a kind of sorting out according to the organizational structure, but this is the fact, the way in which NATO has organized their records. The company that instead has been involved in this case study is Record 365, is Record Point from Australia. Record Point has made available for the study its product named Record 365. Record 365 is a records management platform in place, so not a cloud application, that can ingest data from any digital content source. Record Point is a company that is well learned, it is very privy to the teams and to the concept of our professional domains. They cooperate with the Australian archival administrations, and they seek compliance with various records management and archival standards. So basically, Record 365 uses two kinds of approaches. An approach is a more classical one that also existed before artificial intelligence, based on rules, basically, according to particular conditions, informations, characteristic features of the records, some actions are triggered. And then when there are no sufficient information for this rules-based classification, then intervenes a classification based on machine learning that use a supervised learning strategy. Supervised, it means that before you train the product. Because there is also, we will be seeing the unsupervised, in which the product tries to learn by itself. We have set a series of deliverables, and the one in italics, that can you see, are the one that so far we have managed to achieve some outcomes. So the application is able to aggregate the digitized document according to specific clusters. So for instance, the series to which a particular document belongs, the creator of the document, the topic of the object the document relates to. And the application may or may not capture additional metadata elements concerning that document, such as signatories or the original security classification of the document. These are the one that so far, there are also others, but we have not investigated so far. The case study is still underway. Of course, is necessary a preliminary work. So this is supervised learning strategy. You have to teach this product how to work. How to teach? You have to provide, this is at least a minimum of 50 sample documents of the same kind in order to enable Record 365 to identify which kind of record is dealing with, and so to classify it and to associate with the right case study. Then, of course, is the choice of the series to train the model, of course, have been done by record point on the basis of how many documents were available, and they have chosen a series of 18 categories based on how recently these categories were used on the number of the files inside each category. It's not that it's perfect under the archival point of view, because it's also possible that is a category per se may be important even there are few documents. But in this case, it was a constraint in order to train properly their platform. And so far, 14,000 records have been ingested into the platform, into the Record 365. Of course, we have been given access to the platform to see what had been done by Record 365. So, which are so far the outcome on the first deliverable? First and foremost, is necessary to provide the platform, in this case Record 365, as many intellectual tools as possible. Ontologies, filing plan, taxonomies is a prerequisite. Not always it was possible to do that because there are limitations on the NATO side, because some materials cannot be disclosed. But in a word, it means that these intellectual tools must be present. If they are not present, it means that you cannot train the platform in a way that you can get then the best outcomes, best possible outcomes. Out of a potential number of 300,000 records, 14,000 records have been fed to Record 365. It's necessary to prepare them to create zipped packages, and this is a very manual and lengthy process that archivists had to face. This is important because these are not ALT 2001 in Space Odyssey that they do everything by themselves, or the humanoids of some. Yes, it is a manual process, it's a brute process, but someone has to do that. And when you are going to design a plan in order to use artificial intelligence, you have also to factor in this kind of operation. Then, of course, we have also had problem because not always has been has been possible to provide 50 instances of each kind of records to train record 365s. That means that for some collection of records, particularly collection from subcommittees dealing with specific themes and topics, they were made of various kinds of heterogeneous documents, and it has been difficult to apply automatic classification, automatic association to the right case folders, because it has been difficult to find a sufficient number of identical records to train the platform. And this actually is another problem we have met. Also for metadata enrichment, the second deliverable, so far we have tried to see whether record 365 could find more personal identifier information and associate them with each document. Unfortunately, many false positives have been detected, so review is needed. Let's say we have seen that, however, there are still various problems. Of course, refinement, improvement are possible, but this is the situation. You can see here there are 3 slides about the particular structure of the NATO archives. You can see the North Atlantic Council that is divided by year. I'm not going to stay here. This is the unique identifier of each document that is being used by Record 365. And this is, you can see a screenshot of Record 365. You can see, for instance, that here there are documents found to this particular folder, AC137. In 3 cases in this screenshot, Record 365 has confirmed the association with this particular case files. In 2 more cases, he has proposed another case file. But even if he has proposed another case file, he was a little bit unsure. You can see that he is ready. It means in the when you see the record platform could talk. Okay, yes, I propose this other case file. I'm not much sure about what I'm proposing to you. The second case study is CISU, is Italian Center for Ufological Studies that has made available is a large series of news clippings from the 50s of the 20th centuries to date, are around 70,000, 18,000 documents, PDF files. CISU possesses the largest archives concerning UFO sightings and UFO studies in Italy, is the second largest in Europe, after one in Sweden. Instead, the company that has provided the platform is Ansids from Grimstad, Norway. Ansids used, with his platform, and his name Corpus Cube Linguistics, use a completely different strategy from Record 365. Because while Record 365 use supervised learning, and the more information you provide to Record 365, the better Record 365 works. Instead, for Corpus Cube Linguistics, it works initially by itself. Basically, it starts analyzing the record contents, and initially it works on its own accord. The humans intervene afterward by providing feedback to this artificial intelligence platform. Therefore, the signature features of Corpus Cube Linguistics is its capability to analyze the unstructured contents of the documents fed to it, and then build index and proposal of categorization, which then humans can assess and correct. Which is a problem that for this kind of strategy, that is an unsupervised learning strategy, you have to feed a huge number of documents to the platform, many more documents than to the other platform. We are told by the Ansids, ideally, we should have 100,000 documents of the same archives in order to train Corpus Cube Linguistics. But you have seen in the former slide that the whole size of the series to be analyzed by Corpus Cube Linguistics is just 70,000, 80,000 documents. So it means even if you could feed immediately all the documents of the series to Corpus Cube Linguistics, this would be barely sufficient in order to enable the training of Corpus Cube Linguistics. Some of the first outcomes of the case studies, also this one is underway. Yes, it can create indexes of elements such as dates and names of people and places, can identify names using concept, and can identify personal identifiable information elements. However, by its very design, by the way in which it has been planned, is not able to leverage on finding guides and lists prepared by humans. We have already. And so corpus linguistic behaves in this way, whatever action it tries to perform. So for instance, when a researcher from CISU, Mr. Paolo Toselli, has provided ANSYS with a list himself had created by dividing into 6 categories, around 3,000 new clippings, it has been created manually, you can see it. ANSYS staff replied, okay, yes, is useful, but as a benchmark to see what our product has done, because actually our product cannot use this resource. It works by itself, period. What means this? It means that since it's not able, corpus linguistic is not able to benefit much from already available intellectual tools and reference information, our first conclusion is that these kinds of tools may be useful, particularly in situations where the reconstruction of the archival bond, the identification of the metadata elements are to start from scratch, so where actually this application might actually come in handy because, let's say, that there is nothing available. But instead, if something is already available, at this point, possibly other kinds of products or other kinds of strategy might be more useful. Again, another thing that we have used, of course, that this kind of platform of products are not able to leverage on recurring patterns of extrinsic, or I would say also intrinsic elements of the documentary form that you can find in a document. For instance, on these new clippings, there are almost all of them contain the label that you can see that has been applied by another company 30 years ago that was used by CISU in order to retrieve these new clippings. These labels have a fixed structure. The first one indicates, the first line indicates the periodical or the newspapers. The last line indicates the date. So it is rather a fixed structure. But however, corpus linguistic is not able to understand what it means. Basically, the request of CISU to extract the first and the last line and to use it in order to enrich the metadata elements, so possibly to rename the file of the news clippings, let's say, has been rejected by ANSYS. So these actually are the presentation of our activities and about our case study. Both the case study are still underway, so I have had to present only the provisional, the outcomes so far. And that's it. This is the end of my presentation.
Perfect timing. Thank you very much, Massimiliano. And thank you to all of the speakers this morning. And I'd also like to recognize our interpreters who are working very hard to sign all of the presentations, and it's an enormous amount of work. We're going to break now for lunch. We will resume in 90 minutes. So for those of us in this time zone, that would be 1:30. For those of you who are watching from perhaps another time zone, 90 minutes from now. Thank you very much.